Richard Johnson, thanks for joining me for the first of our Ask Jonno sessions. We've put it out there to our members and followers that you very much like to answer questions from the membership and from our wider following as opposed to just me, so fair play to you for that. So we've had a few questions sent in. Thank you to everyone who has sent them in. So let's go straight into it.
These are the readable ones, are they?
These are the readable ones. There's been quite a few, Jonno, that have been on the same theme. So we've amalgamated. I saw little point in asking half a dozen questions along the same topic, so we've kind of gone with a theme that we'll stick to. So let's kick off with the first one. So ahead of the season starting, Alan Coleman was quoted as saying that the two objectives for this season were to be competitive in red ball cricket and to show continued improvement in white ball cricket.
Yep.
Looking at where we are now, obviously Blast starts this week, but where we are now, 2 wins, 4 losses in the championship. How do you feel we're coming along in terms of meeting those objectives in red ball cricket?
Yeah, look, it's obviously been a tough reintroduction into First Division cricket. I think we spoke before about how hard that transition into Div 1's going to be, and how I think the gap between Div 1 and Div 2 is just getting bigger.
Yeah.
The guys that have First Division experience in our team have actually found it tough going. If you think about the guys, apart from Rocky, Stoneman and Higo, the other guys that have played haven't played for 5-6 years, and the gap in that 5-6 years I think has got bigger, and I think it's actually surprised a few at how much harder it is in that First Division. We've had a good sit down at the end of that 6-game block, which is always a good time to do it, and you know, talk very openly and honestly about where we're at and what we need to improve on. You know, supporters and members may look at that and just go, well, we've got to score more runs. I mean, you know, it's an obvious question. The first few wickets we played on here were certainly very challenging for our batters and the opposition batters. I think the last couple of games we've just lost key moments in the game, and the result of that has made the result look very bad. But if you think that during those games, the people we've dropped and how much they went on to get, for example, Smith, we dropped on 20 odd, went on to get 97. We dropped Bartlett the other day on 25. He went to get 125. You know, those margins are just too big to cope with. And then some poor decisions, obviously, with our bat. We're very open and honest about that. We haven't been strong enough. We haven't been hard enough on ourselves around that top of off, which is what we pride ourselves on last year. So we have a way of playing that we want to play that way, and we haven't nailed that down this year so far. And that's something we talked long and hard about at the end of that block, and something we're gonna work hard on in the build up to the next championship game in between all these T20s.
I suppose this break after the Somerset game, you said you sat down with the boys and had a good frank chat at the end of that 6-game block. I suppose this gave you an opportunity really to kind of take stock of where we're at, give you a bit of a reset, a bit of a recharge, have a look at performances, have a look at our game plan and our blueprint, and probably assess it. And I guess moving into the white ball stuff gives you a bit of an opportunity to kind of get into another format, and then you can readdress the situation when you return to 4-day cricket. Yeah,
look, we have quite a lot of crossover from our T20 into our red ball, or red ball into our T20. So there's, you know, a lot of those red ball guys are just going to be playing T20 cricket and then straight away have to go back into red ball. It's not an excuse. It's just, you know, other counties have it as well. It's quite a hard transitioning between the two. We do have a small core that will go away and just focus on red ball cricket now. We've got Ramps, obviously one of the best batting coaches around, if not the best. He'll be working one-to-one with a few of those red ball batters over the next few weeks until that next game against Hampshire at the Aegeus.
Good stuff. On to the next one, Jonno. A number of people asking this one, but does the club have any plans at all to bring in a second overseas player this year? Obviously, we've got Peter Milan in situ. Obviously, we did have Maharaj in the plans. Of course, that fell through with injury. Any plans to bring in another?
Look, it's a difficult situation. Everyone knows we've got, you know, had some financial difficulties. It's a fluid situation where we're not ruling it out at the moment, but we've got nothing in at the moment. It's something that obviously the club are trying hard to address for us, and if we can get someone, then we will, but at the moment we're not at the moment.
I suppose the key is getting the right person as well. I mean, at the time that Maharaj got injured, it was on the eve of the season. These players don't grow on trees, and you can't just pop out and make a phone call and get someone arriving the next morning, can you?
No, that's right. It will be tough if we do go down that road. There aren't, most of the good ones now are sort of taken, and not many come in at the second half of the season and play Red Bull. So it's a situation that, as I say, is pretty fluid at the moment, and we'll see how it pans out. I'm sorry, I can't really answer it any more clearly than that, to be honest. If you think that's clear or not, I don't know.
It's honest and it's accurate, so that's all we can ask. Jonno, on to a little look ahead at Blast. Last season's white ball campaign saw us focusing on backing youngsters. We talked about the talent in that group and the fact that we were going to keep playing them and give them more experience and game time, and as a result they improve as cricketers. Another year under their belt last year. How well prepared, I guess, are those lads? How well have they come on for this year's Blast campaign?
Yeah, I think they're coming on really well. I think when we spoke this time last year, we spoke about building something over the next few years.
Yeah.
I think just repeating what I said last year to a certain degree, we've been unsuccessful in T20 cricket since we won it last in 2008.
Yeah.
We've got to 2 quarter-finals in 15 years. For a big club like ours, that's it's not great. Yeah. So it's not a quick fix. We're not just going to suddenly put a plaster over it and see what we can do. We've got to build it. We've identified a core of young players that we believe in, and we will back to the hilt to get us through the next few years and improve and get better. And we will add over the next couple of years. We will add players to that, and that might be from within the squad who put their hand up and come in and do well, and they add to that. And hopefully, if the financial situation gets better, that might be that we go in the market, we get a couple of overseas players or a domestic player. So, we're pretty clear on the strategy, very clear on what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. We've got a very young team. It's an amazing environment. The boys are practicing hard. We will be giving everything to win as many games as we can. It is inexperienced. We know that. Yep. We haven't got the overseas players. We know that. We are the underdogs. We know that. But it doesn't mean to say we can't come together, fight hard, play well, and win games along the way.
I'm going to pull these next 2 questions together, Jonno, because they're kind of linked. Somebody asking about our ultimate aim, I guess, this year is to remain in Division 1. Having got there, it's not something we want to give up easily. He's got concerns over the batters and how they've struggled, and he's asked whether there's any thought of going into the loan system, getting out there, perhaps other domestic cricketers that are out there not getting game time themselves. Any thoughts that the club might have on going into that market and pulling in someone on loan?
No, I back our boys to come through a tricky patch. You don't become poor players overnight. They all averaged over 40 last year. We've played on tough wickets, as I said earlier. You look at the opposition scores against us, bar the last 2 games, which was an away game and the last one here. The opposition have been around about our scores anyway. So look, it's a difficult situation where our senior players especially understand that they've underperformed so far. Yep. And as I said earlier, we're going to work very, very hard over the next few weeks to get back to doing what we know we can do well. I don't... Loan systems there, obviously. Normally, if there's injuries, we have a stock of batters, not just in the first team but in the second team as well, that I know are good players. So we'll create competition within the squad and go from there, to be honest.
I suppose, just following up on that, Jonno, it's also who's out there. Who's out there that's consistently performing better than some of our top order batters that aren't necessarily performing to their ability right here and now. First and foremost, you've got to target that player. But secondly, they've got to want to move. They've got to be available. Yeah. It's not a simple solution.
From a batting point of view, if you're a good player and you're scoring runs, you're in the first team anyway, so you're not actually available for loan. Yeah, if you're available for loan, you're going through your own bad patch. Yeah. And you're looking for opportunities generally. Yeah. It comes more into the fore when you look at bowling and you get injuries and people are just on the outside of a first team that are good enough to play, but you generally have quite a stock of fast bowlers, and if they get injured, you might bring one in. So, look, we'll crack on with our lads. We believe in them 100%, trust them 100%, and they'll come good.
Good stuff. Conversely, Jonno, something we've obviously done in the past is utilise the loan system for some of our own youngsters. I remember Ethan going out on loan, Max going out on loan, and I think he won Northants Player of the Year that year when he went there on loan. We've got a relatively decent sized squad with a lot of youngsters in it. Obviously it's going to be hard to give everyone game time, certainly in the first 11. Any thoughts on perhaps giving some of those youngsters some opportunity to play first 11 cricket out on loan?
Yeah, look, I'm not opposed to that at all. Again, I think as a young player to go on loan, you need to have had something behind you.
Yes.
Because everyone's got young players that they can take a risk on, if you know what I mean. So you've got to have something behind you. Max went when he'd already scored some runs in first-class cricket and went and did well. Bamba already played some first-class cricket with some good wickets behind him, wasn't getting in. So, so you've got to have something behind you. You don't just get picked up by another county because they have their own. But if we've got young players who we feel will benefit and the club wants them, we would obviously have a look at that, yeah.
Good stuff. Jonno, on to our match prep ahead of T20s. I've got someone asking, particularly at Radlett, where we play obviously this year, one T20 game there anyway, asking why batsmen aren't having more throwdowns and getting more kind of innings ready, if you like, on the sidelines before they actually go into bat. He's seeing people sitting around watching, getting cold. Why aren't they actually going out there and having a hit in the nets ahead of going out there and having a hit in the middle?
Well, interestingly, I think we tried to do that here many years ago. I can't remember who the coach was. Obviously Scotty, but I don't know if it was the year Dan Vittori came in or not. But there was a hitting net and batters standing there and hitting balls at Lords into a big net. But I think health and safety came in and said that's probably not an acceptable level of safety for the crowd.
I think you're absolutely right on that.
So one, I don't think you're allowed to. Two, I have seen teams that will have bikes stationed by the side and people have a cycle before they go in, warm their legs up. Does that make a difference? Maybe not. It's nothing proven. The science guys will tell you there's nothing proven in that, I think. If we could, maybe we would be able to have a hit if we could, but that's taken away from us, so it's not really even an option, to be honest.
No, fair play, Jonno. And last one, apologies if I haven't actually specifically read your question out, but hopefully yours has been included within what I have asked Jonno here. The last one is, given the lack of success in white ball cricket in recent years, what are the club's plans to alter this? There you go, nice and simple.
Well, I think I've answered that already to a degree. We've got a group of young players that we're backing, supporting, developing, that we feel is going to take the club forward. That's very clear. We know who those guys are. It's an open group, so if you come in and you do well, you'll be added to that, and we'll look then over the next couple of years, hopefully with the financial situation eases a little bit, we can add a couple of overseas, and we might then, the potential for domestic as well. So, as I said, we have might not look it always from the outside, but we have a clear strategy on the inside that we're trying to do, and something that we're building towards, and we're excited about.
I suppose just following up on that one, Jonno, the easiest thing to suggest is, well, why aren't the club going out there and getting a gun overseas player? Two things. Number one, you mentioned the fact that we aren't financially in a position to do that at this point, and secondly, we've done it before, and it doesn't guarantee you any success.
No, that's right. And, I think I've spoken in the past, I don't know whether I've spoken to you about this, but I've spoken in the past about, in previous years, the squad was set up primarily as a red ball squad. And in the early days of T20, it was almost, go and upskill the players to be good at white ball. It's not quite as easy as it sounds. I think there is a different technique and a different way now to playing white ball cricket. And that specialism and that practice and the way you go about it is completely different. If you take, for example, our winter, most of the winter we had at least 16 players throughout the winter in at the indoor school working on white ball skills. Just to give you an idea, the other counties around who are good at white ball cricket only had 4 or 5 people, because the rest of them were out playing franchise cricket everywhere. Now, we hardly lost anyone to franchise cricket, which shows where we are as a white ball club. So that's not going to change overnight. We're working very, very hard behind the scenes to change it and to make our young players better, and to have a brand of cricket that the supporters want to watch. We want to go out there and express ourselves. We want to go out and be aggressive and smash the ball out the park and bowl Yorkers and get people out. It's exciting, and it's what we want to do, and we're working really hard towards that. And hopefully, this season you'll see that brand, and you'll see sometimes we'll smash it out of the park and get 200 odd, and other days it might not go quite as well because we've got a young team. But we keep learning, we keep developing, we keep getting better. we keep talking and making it a better place. And I know over the next couple of years that will continue to improve. And added, as I said, with a couple of players here and there, I think we've got the nucleus of a team moving forward. Doesn't mean to say, and I keep talking about the future and forward, doesn't mean to say we can't win games now, and we'll be trying, our hardest and damnedest to do that.
Brilliant. Well, Jonno, thanks so much for your honesty and your openness. That concludes the first edition of Ask Jonno. We'll be doing these once a month, where we'll ask for questions to be sent in. I'm guessing the next one.
You didn't do the Johnson out ones yet.
The Johnson out ones, there were a number. I'd like to think you'll still be here when we do our next Ask Jonno. I saw no value in asking you whether you were going to step down. Jonno, look, thank you, as I say. It's important, I think, that we have this level of transparency and openness with the followers and the members. So thank you for your time, and cheers. Brilliant idea, I think. Anyone who has any questions, please send them in for the next edition, and I look forward to catching up with you then.
Will do. Cheers.